Welcome. So glad to have you guys with us today. This is usually we do these lunch and learns at 12 noon Central Time, but that's an inconvenient time for some people in other time zones. So we're trying out some different times to see what they see how it works. So feel free to let me know if this works well for you. The fact that you're here probably means it works better than we haven't been able to show up before. Anyway, we're going to be talking about secrets of successful Scrum Masters today. So, first, let me say, I have a book called Starting Agile. You can get it on Amazon, but I would be happy to send you a digital copy if you want. Just hit reply to anything that I've sent you. My email address is, I'll type it in the chat here, in case you don't have it. Feel free to send me an email and let me know that you would like a copy of that book, and I will get it sent your way. Also, youtube.com/MarkShed. I have a number of Agile cartoons. These Lunch and Learns also stream there. /AgileLnL is where they're mainly archived. But if you're looking for something to go over Agile principles with your team, check out my channel. I've got lots of short cartoons that a lot of people have found to be pretty useful. Okay, let me check one more thing here. Make sure I hit all the buttons that need to be hit. Looks like I have. Okay. So first question is, what is your role? So we have there should be a Slido thing that pops up. If not, you can go to slido.com and just type in the number there. But it looks like most of us are Scrum Masters, or at least we do many of those roles. And let's see, I like this. I'm not a Scrum Master, but I play one on TV. I'm just here to figure out what our Scrum Master is doing wrong. And no people are here because they want to become a Scrum Master. So they probably are in the category of having many of the Scrum Master roles. Make one other change here. Okay, so that just kind of gives me an idea where we kind of know where everybody came from. If you please go ahead and bring the Slido up, because we're going to have other questions as we go, and a little contest at the end. It looks like 6 of us answered those, but keep that up as we go, because getting the feedback makes this a lot more interesting for all of us when we've got participation. Okay, so what is a Scrum Master? Let me take a little divergence here to come back to that question. What is a Scrum Master? First question for you. What is the most important job of a Scrum Master? Like, how would you describe the job of a Scrum Master? And there's no right or wrong answers. Just kind of get us thinking more deeply about this. All in one. Okay, so the person that does everything. Herding cats. That could be a good way of putting it. So that's great. There's an old EDS commercial of all these people herding cats. If you haven't seen it, it's great. A servant leader. Okay, 2 people on that. Help the teams follow Agile practices. To coach the team on best Agile practices. Coaching. Protect the team, which can mean different things. Protecting the team meaning helping them get things done. Helping them interface with the organization. The conductor, I like that one. Make sure everybody's working together. Servant leader for the team who also helps the team manage workflow. Coaching yourself out of a job. So yes, these are all great great aspects to think about when you're thinking about what a Scrum Master does. We've got some more servant leader. Okay, so these are some, and like I said, there's no right or wrong answer here. This is just kind of some of the aspects we see with Scrum Master. So if you go back and say, what does Scrum Master even mean? So here's my little kind of wandering path. But who said, "Friends, Romans, countrymen, lend me your ears"? And this does tie into Scrum Masters, but have you heard that quote, and who actually said it? Any guesses? Mark Anthony, yes. So in Shakespeare's character, Mark Anthony said this. So very good. Yes, it was Mark Anthony. This quote from Shakespeare, Julius Caesar play, I believe. And here's the most famous, probably one of the more famous version of Charlton Heston saying, "Friends, friends, Romans, countrymen, lend me your ears." And the reason I bring him up is because he had a title. Mark Anthony had a title, and he was Magister Equitum. Magister Equitum means master of the horse. And this is This is a role that is still around. I believe Lord Vesti was, I think this is from 2018. He was the Master of Horse back in 2018. I think he has passed away or retired. Somebody else is in that role now. I don't remember which, but I had the best picture of Lord Vesti from Wikipedia. But his role is Master of Horse. He takes care of the horses, make sure all the horses are in order. This is an old Roman position. So we've also got Magister Peditum. In the Roman army, there's Magister Peditum, who is master of the foot, who is in charge of foot soldiers. And the reason I want to bring this up is if we look at the way this word comes about, Magister Equitum, so we've got the Latin Magister, and this is getting translated into master. If we take Magister from Latin and translate back into English, we get the word teacher. Now, what I want to point out here is that when it comes to thinking about the role of a Scrum Master, what we don't want to do is take our idea of master and the idea of the person who dominates or decides everything that happens. If we translate that from English into Latin, we get dominus, and that's not the word that's being used here. What we want to do is think in terms of the Magister, Scrum Master being the Scrum teacher, the person who has hopefully mastered a lot of things related to Scrum and can pass that knowledge on to other people. If we start thinking in terms of it being the person, if we start thinking in terms of it being the definition that gives us the word dominus, we end up with really, really weird things that do not function as teams. So we should be thinking more along the lines of the person that is teaching or helping lead. I like the servant leadership, it was great, but not the person that's just controlling. So what is a Scrum Master? Well, it's not Dominus Scrum, right? This is not what we mean by Scrum Master. It actually should be Magister Scrum, if we're thinking of what the definition of the words are. So the person who teaches and leads. Okay, so now we're going to move into several secrets of successful Scrum Masters. I've worked with a lot of Scrum Masters over the years, and so what I'm hoping to do here is just show you some of the things that I've seen that work really, really well, as maybe some of the things to avoid. So the Scrum Masters I've seen that are extremely successful create relationships. And this probably makes sense, like we would make sense of this, but you think, okay, the Scrum Master needs to have a relationship, get to know the developers, they need to get to know the operation technicians, the business owner, and the SQA people, and those all make sense, and we kind of think about that. But the really successful Scrum Masters I've seen go well beyond that, and they also know the business owners managers, and the ops manager, and the developer manager, and the SQA manager, and that one person that no one knows what they do, but everyone respects their input. So I have seen a very strong correlation between the success of a Scrum Master and how well they are networked within the organization, which sounds like a simple thing, but I think a lot of times Scrum Masters don't necessarily approach that intentionally. So they do sometimes have some relationships, but they don't realize how far and broad they need to invest in relationships across the organization. Another thing that successful Scrum Masters do is they remember why they're doing what they're doing. So why do you do a face-to-face meeting? So what a lot of people call their daily stand-up. That's a question that that a successful Scrum Master is going to be answering and be able to really focus on with their team. So it isn't because you really like asking 3 questions to be answered. Scrum Masters ask 3 questions and then go, I've been in a situation where Scrum Master, if this was not a successful Scrum Master, they would ask the 3 questions of each person and go back to their desk and play solitaire. They saw their role as just asking 3 questions every day. Since they weren't focused on why they were asking the 3 questions, they were not very successful in what they did. The successful Scrum Masters are really good at understanding why they're doing the different ceremonies and things, and that makes them more effective at doing those different ceremonies. So another question, why do you have a retrospective? Well, to improve. If you're just doing a retrospective and they're just turning into complaining sections about things that you can't change, that's not actually helping you improve your process. So the successful Scrum Masters are usually going back to the Agile principles to decide why they do, or to make sure they're very focused on why they do all the different things that they're doing. Another thing I've noticed with successful Scrum Masters, so this is a picture, I think from an old book illustration, of the story of Alcyone and CX. And they were, it's Greek mythology or Roman mythology, I can't remember which. They were very much in love. He went off, sailed somewhere. He died. The gods saw how much they were loved and turned them both into kingfisher birds. And the story and the mythology around that was that the kingfishers would lay their eggs on nests that floated on the sea, which turns out not to be correct, but that's what people thought. And during that time, there were halcyon days or peaceful days when the sea was calm. And so the kingfisher was thought to bring about calm days. And when I read this story, I was like, that's exactly what a Scrum Master does, is create these halcyon days or creates peace to the team. Now, there is a difference between peace that is created because no one knows what's going on or because there's secrets, and peace that goes on because everybody understands and has built a lot of trust. I was working on one team that I was one of the coaches on it, and management decided to fire all the coaches except for me and one other person. They brought in somebody new, fired all the coaches. I was the only coach that kind of was left standing in the process. But it was amazing to see how the Scrum Master did a very good job of communicating with the team, so everyone knew what was going on and had peace because they understood, and there was uncertainty, but the Scrum Master was able to communicate really, really well in a way that made things, brought about transparency that brought a lot of peace to things. The other thing when it comes to bringing peace to the team is not by just masking the symptoms. I've worked on a team that was very, very concerned about the team having peace, but so concerned about it that they were willing to hide. They wanted peace at the expense of fixing problems. So when there were big problems with the team and there were clashes, like you're going to have with any team, they wanted to reduce the clashing instead of dealing with the problems that were producing the clashing. So when you bring peace to the team, it's dealing with the actual issues that might be causing conflict. Conflict is a wonderful thing on a team because it usually points you to something that needs to be fixed. But if you just kind of mask the symptoms of the conflict, you're not actually doing your role of bringing peace to the team. So another thing that I've seen with successful Scrum Masters is they are constantly trying to deepen their understanding of what's going on in the process. So they should always be asking questions. I was working with one Scrum Master that one in particular, and I usually do this whenever I'm coaching with a team. I'm usually talking to the Scrum Master and saying, if there's anything you don't understand after the daily stand-up or whenever, let's sit down and let's talk through it and make sure that you understand it. And I remember one Scrum Master talking to her about this, and she said, I know I asked you this yesterday, but I'm confused again today about some technical thing that the team was doing. And I explained to her, I was like, that's just fine. Please go ahead and come and keep on asking until it makes sense. And I'm just fine with answering, even if you think it's the same question every day, because your ability, her ability to understand what the team was doing is what she needed to do her job well. If you can't remove impediments if you don't know what people are talking about. So what I would suggest doing is trying to find a technical ally, somebody you can work with that is happy to answer the same question. If you're not super technical, that's very happy to answer the same question every day until it makes perfect sense, so you can actually do your job in supporting the team. And if you're not a Scrum Master, this might be a role that you can play for the Scrum Master. If you're more technical and you're working with a Scrum Master, this could be something where you sit down with the Scrum Master and say, hey, I know you may not be as technical, so some of these things may not make sense. I'm going to do my best to try to explain them, but if anything doesn't make sense, please keep coming back until they do make sense, at least at the level that you need to understand in order to support the team. So successful Scrum Masters really work hard to deepen their understanding and build those relationships with people on the team that can help them successfully understand what's happening, particularly on the technical side of things. Now, that doesn't mean that the Scrum Master is going to suddenly become a developer, but if they don't understand what the team is talking about at all, it's very difficult for them to do their job. It's kind of like the one that would go back, just sit at her desk and play solitaire after asking the 3 questions. She didn't have any idea of what was actually going on with the team, so she wasn't able to be very effective at all in helping the team succeed. Enable your team. Successful Scrum Masters enable their teams. And an example, kind of example of this is the team should be able to get to the point where they can pretty much run themselves if you're actually enabling the team. And oftentimes, Scrum Masters become very focused on their role in ways that they're defending their territory. So they don't want anybody else doing, they wouldn't want anybody else running the daily stand-up because that's what they do. And what I find is that's more likely to happen in Scrum Masters that aren't really working on understanding how the team works. And those are the ones that start attaching their identity to running a particular ceremony, rather than enabling the team, like somebody mentioned earlier, trying to work themselves out of a job. Now, my experience in a large organization has been are always plenty of new things for the Scrum Master to do to help the team continue to work. So I haven't ever seen them actually work themselves out of their job on teams that are moving quickly, because there's always new things coming up that need help, but it does change and shift over time. They may not be needed to run the daily stand-up, even if that is a role they fulfill on a regular basis. So, example is who runs the daily face-to-face meeting. This shouldn't be your identity. And one example there, or a good litmus test for this, I think, is if the daily stand-up starts. Let's say it starts at 8:30, and everybody shows up except for the Scrum Master. What happens? And on a healthy team, somebody will just step up and run daily stand-up. There won't be much time sitting around waiting for the Scrum. They'll assume that they were busy doing something else that would help the team, or got stuck in traffic, or whatever may have happened, and it's no big deal. Somebody else just goes ahead and runs things. If you're on a team if you're a Scrum Master and the team does that, that is a very healthy situation to be in. If they sit around for 15 minutes and don't do anything, hoping you show up and then just leave, in that case, the team isn't seeing the meeting as being something that's valuable for them. And they're waiting for the Scrum Master. That's not a healthy situation. So this is a kind of a good litmus test of just kind of thinking through what your team would do in that situation. Matter of fact, I think on some teams I've coached, I've actually tried this and told the Scrum Master, just wait outside the room for 10 minutes and let's see what happens. Just to get a pulse on where the team is. I've been on some teams that we actually set it up to where every day this was a distributed team, it would post into the Slack channel saying, here's the people that can run the daily stand-up. And it would just randomly pick 3 people from the team. Sometimes it was the Scrum Master, sometimes it wasn't. And it would be, the first one would do it unless they were busy or for some reason couldn't, they would be the second person. And doing that kind of helped emphasize the fact that the daily stand-up was for the team, and the Scrum Master could facilitate it, but didn't have to. Another secret that I see successful Scrum Masters do is promoting the definition of done. So making sure that the team understands what it means for something to be completed. I've been on teams that one of the big things I usually do when working with a new team is start saying, okay, let's make sure the stuff stays on our board until we know there's no more hidden work. And this really freaks people out, because usually that means we're not going to move it to done until it's in production and the users say, yes, this does what we want. We don't see any bugs with it and we're using this. So if you only deploy infrequently, this means a bunch of stuff sticks around on your board, which makes people very uncomfortable, which is the whole reason I do that. It makes us uncomfortable when we start looking for ways to deploy, get things to the user more quickly. But promoting that definition of done and encouraging your team not to take shortcuts to where you're saying, oh, we're done with this, but testing hasn't looked at it yet, so let's rearrange our board so we don't have to actually say it's not done yet because we've done our development work, but then testing's going to look at it. In a lot of cases, you do that, and there's all this hidden work that starts coming back. So this can be an entire talk of its own. But the successful Scrum Masters I've seen really promote the definition of done, which is a definition of what it means we're not going to give ourselves credit or pat ourselves on the back for finishing something until we don't think there's any more, until we are confident there is no more hidden work associated with it. Successful Scrum Masters understand the economic value. So Scrum Masters that don't understand why the software they're producing is valuable have a really hard time helping teams be successful. You have to understand what your team is doing and how that actually makes money for the organization. If you don't understand that, it's very easy to do things that are very counterproductive in terms of generating our return on investment, but may make perfect sense if you ignore how the organization actually works. So understanding the economic value is very important if you want to be successful as a Scrum Master. You have to understand how your organization makes money and how what your team is doing actually helps enable that. It is very easy to do a tremendous amount of work without producing anything of value. And understanding the economic value helps make sure that you're able to do the work that matters and lessen or do less of the work that doesn't actually produce results. Focusing on finishing. You probably heard the things and stop starting and start finishing. Successful Scrum Masters are really, really good at getting their teams focused on finishing and delivering something. And this ties back into the economic value thing. If the Scrum Master is looking and say, hey, we've got all this work in flight, but none of it is actually producing any economic value for us, they should be focusing on getting the team to say, okay, let's get something all the way done so it produces economic value. And that constant pressure or reminder of what produces economic value is how we make sure that we stop starting new things and start finishing things to get to the point that we're actually delivering something valuable. So take a look at this. Here's an example of if we've got cost on the up and down axis, so how much the developers cost per day, and then we've got these two valuable things we're trying to work on, and it happens over time. It's very easy to want to work on valuable thing 1 and at the same time work on valuable thing 2. So we've got two things happening at the same time. Scrum Masters should be encouraging teams toward, if possible, let's put all of our effort into doing valuable thing 1 and getting it complete. So then while we're working on valuable thing 2, we're now earning a return on our investment from valuable thing 1. So the users are actually able to use valuable thing 1 that we delivered while we work on valuable thing 2. These are the types of things that the Scrum Master should be really focused on making sure happens, because this is how you actually deliver value to your organization. And I've got some other talks where I break this down even more detail, because we may even find that valuable thing 1 consists of 2 different pieces. And maybe we could deliver the first part of that piece and the users could actually start using it, and that while we work on the second part. And if we're able to split things up really, really small, we can get to the point where the users are getting constant stream of things that are valuable that they can start using, instead of us waiting long periods of time. And so this Scrum Masters should be familiar with and understand this graph and be able to convey it to stakeholders and to their developers. If this doesn't make sense, send me an email. I've got another talk that there's a recording of where we go into this in more detail. I can find that for you and send it to you. Okay, so here's some ways to stop starting and start finishing. One very simple way is to start on the, I use the word right, start on the correct side of the board, or start on the right side of the board. So most of us are moving things from left to right. So we've got all these things that the things on the left are things that we've just started, and the things on the right are the things that are almost done. Oh, I've actually got a slide of this here in just a second. So here, let's go through these and then we'll look at these in more detail. So starting on the right-hand side of the board, as far as when you're deciding what to work on, when you have capacity, encouraging small batch sizes. I mentioned splitting those stories up, removing delays, coordinating collaboration, and enable and encourage splitting stories. Any of these could be a separate talk on its own, but let's look at a typical board. So oftentimes we have a board that looks something like this. We've got all these things that are done. Those are things that are earning value. We've got these things that are in testing, and we got one thing in testing that's blocked. Let me see if I've got. Okay, we've got one thing that in testing that has been blocked. Then we've got things that are in development and requirements. If we have more capacity for some reason, the thing that teams often like to do is somebody wants to go over and take a story that's ready and start working on it. But that is not what we should be doing. If we've got more capacity, let's put more people on this story in testing that's blocked and figure out how to get it unblocked so it can get to done. Or that story in testing. And that may mean a developer going and helping somebody in testing do stuff, if that's possible. If there's no way we can work on any of the stuff in testing, or it doesn't help to add more people to it, then let's go to the stuff that's in development and say, okay, in development, can we pair up some people up and get the things in development over into testing? And by working our way across the board, starting on the right-hand side and then working back to the left, we're able to make sure that we're always working on the thing that is closest to being able to start delivering economic value for the team. So that's what we mean by starting on the right. So this is a very simple change. But what I encourage teams to do is when you're in your daily face-to-face meeting, instead of just going around and asking people questions, which that can be useful, I'm not saying never do this, but on a regular basis, start on the right-hand side and say, okay, here's this story. How are we going to organize our work today to get this block story and testing to the done column? And then how are we going to organize our work to get this next story and testing? And if we work our way to the left and we get to the point there's stuff in requirements for development and we don't have any capacity for people to work on that because we're all focused on getting the things to the right done, that's fine. We can stop having our daily stand-up because it doesn't really matter if we know that that's going to keep us busy for the day, because we all know we're all working on the thing that's most the thing that will give us the economic value the soonest. And so this type of thinking, a Scrum Master can do a lot to enable that for their team. The 3 questions does not enable this type of thinking. Doesn't mean you should never use the three questions, but this is what we want to make sure is the way that people are motivated toward trying to finish things rather than trying to start new things. Okay, so this is a funny question. What should not be allowed in prioritization? Who should not be allowed in prioritization meeting? Okay, this is kind of a joke, but just take a stab at it. Should Mortimer not be allowed in prioritization meetings? Should Victoria? Should Ruth or Ichabod? Okay, no one wants Ichabod in their prioritization meeting. Kind of funny story. My brother lives down in Guatemala, and he had a he had a baby, and he somehow got a hold of me before he got a hold of my parents. We knew they were having a baby, but they hadn't told anybody the name. And so I got to call my parents and tell them, yes, Michael just had a baby. His new son's name is Ichabod. And there was just this silence. That wasn't his name. That wasn't what they had named him. But there was this silence on the other line, and my parents were thinking through the idea of, oh, great, we've got a grandchild named Ichabod, and okay, I guess we can get used to that. And then I told no, and the name, I think it was when Hudson was born. Anyway, okay, so most of us are like, we don't want Ichabod in the prioritization meeting. So I would actually say, and this is very, forgive me, this is very punny, but I would say we want to keep Ruth out of the prioritization meeting because we want to have ruthless prioritization. Okay, we want to be ruthless in our prioritization. So Ruth is not allowed in the meeting. Okay, yes, that was silly, but maybe it'll help you remember that the term ruthless prioritization should be something that your team is thinking of when you're prioritizing. So imagine that these 2 lines represent 2 ways of rewriting a piece of software. So the top line is we're going to start on, we've got all these features that already exist, or we're rewriting it, and we've got some new features we want to do. And so we start off writing some existing functionality, and then we do a new feature over there, and then we do some minimal viable, which is the thing we just need to go live. I guess I should define these. So minimally viable features would be things we could go live with even if it doesn't match, even if it doesn't give us parity with what we have today. So there may be ways to work around stuff, but we could potentially run the system even if it doesn't do what the system is that we're trying to replace. Existing functionality is just the stuff we need to do to be able to do what the system does today, to be able to say, yes, this is a drop-in replacement because it does everything. And the new features are things, oftentimes the reason we're rewriting a system is because we want to do these new features. Well, if we prioritize the top way, and what lots of organizations will do is prioritize like this top thing across here. So they'll do some existing functionality, and then they'll work on a new feature because that's what everybody's really excited about. So they add this new feature, and then they go back and do some existing functionality, and they kind of go across like this. And in this case, you can't really do anything. You can't actually use the system until you get to the very end, because that's when you did the last piece of what's minimally viable. Ruthless prioritization, remember, we don't want, Ichabod can join, but we don't want Ruth as part of the prioritization. And I'm very sorry here if anyone's name is Ruth. Please don't take offense. But ruthless prioritization says, okay, let's make sure that we don't work on any new feature or any existing functionality until we've got the minimally viable. So let's make sure we reprioritize all of our prioritize all of our work. So we get to the point where we have all the minimally viable stuff done first before we work on existing functionality that maybe goes beyond the what's minimally viable. And then let's not work on any new features until we have both of those done. If we take this type of approach, that means that we're going to be at a point that we could go live once we finish all the yellow stuff. Now, we may choose not to, but that ability to go live. That ability to go live gives us options that we don't have if we aren't ruthless in the way that we prioritize stuff. And this can be really, really hard. I was in a big meeting with it was with the Treasury one time, the U.S. Treasury I was doing some work with, and we were trying to say, look at each story and say, is this story minimally viable, or is it something we might be able to go live without? And no one wanted what their favorite story was to be in the non-minimally viable. Everyone wanted their story to be in the minimally viable because they were worried that if we didn't get that, if it wasn't minimally viable, they may never see it. So we were able to work through some stuff, but it was very, very difficult. That ruthless prioritization can be very, very, very hard. But this is a role that Scrum Masters can really bring a lot of value to. Okay, so kind of a silly question, but this is going somewhere. So which is a better deal? Buying 1 cubic yard of milk for 300 United States dollars or 350 pounds of milk for 50,000 Pakistani rupees, or no idea, or who cares? So what do you think? Just take your best guess, because I'm trying to make a point with this. But okay, 350 pounds of milk for 50,000 Pakistani rupees, no idea. And the main thing I want you to do here is think about this and say, how would you actually know? Do you have enough information to actually know about this? And my point is, you probably don't, right? So most of us are in the no idea. We have no way of looking between these two things and really thinking about, unless we do some research, and really thinking in terms of which is actually better. So actually, in this case, so we got these two things, which is the better deal. Both of these, at least at the time I looked this up, both of these are about equivalent. They're about the same thing. So at least at the exchange rate when I made this talk, they may be a little bit different now. But my point here isn't for you to go out and buy milk by the pound in Pakistani rupees. My goal here is to get us thinking about the fact we need to understand the economic units behind what we're doing. If we don't understand the economic units, it's going to be very difficult for us to be able to weigh and say, look, this story is actually going to produce more value than this other story. Or this story is going to take a lot longer than this other story. And so what I want to encourage you is, if you're playing the role of a Scrum Master, or if you're working with a Scrum Master and can try to help enable this, what you really want to do is try to make sure that you're understanding what the units are that you're working with. Understanding, okay, we've got this one story. How many man hours, people hours is it going to take to actually deliver this? And how valuable is it to our organization? If we don't know those things, it's very difficult to have any type of sense of prioritizing things. And I was showing a prioritization where we were looking at just what's needed to go live, which is very, very important. But you maybe have a live system and trying to decide between story A and story B. Those economic units are what you really need to understand. And they may look different for different organizations. If you're working with a nonprofit, it's going to look very different than if you're working for a profit organization. But that's where you really need to understand the economic units so you can help talk through the trade-offs of doing A before B or B before A. Another thing for Scrum Master to do is removing impediments. So I have a story from one of these. I was once working, this was on a Treasury project, and I was in Parkersburg, West Virginia. The team was distributed, but the people responsible for deploying our system were in Parkersburg, West Virginia, which is a very small place with a big government data center. And while we were there, I found that my role to facilitate the team, so I was Agile coaching mainly focused on the developers, but I knew the floor plan. I knew where everybody's office was. in this place in Parkersburg, West Virginia, and I had relationships with these people. So if something was impeding the team, I would go find the person in their office that we needed to help with that. And not only did I know where their offices were, but I knew the other rooms that they happened to work in. So I could usually find people. So during these, I think, 6 weeks that we were there in Parkersburg, West Virginia, I was able to remove the impediments for the team just by being able to find people in their office and help get things done instead of having to wait for an email that maybe they'd check every 4 hours or so. So in this case, removing impediments came down to I know the floor plan and I can find people. And what I want to encourage you is, as a Scrum Master, sometimes it can be as simple as that. And I could have said, well, I'm the Agile coach, I don't need to do this, somebody else should be doing this. But I was the person on the team that happened to be physically located, and so I was happy to do it because that's what it took to move the team forward. Okay, so here's another kind of example. So this is a busy road. And I want just think about for a second, which would be a better situation here? Oh, okay. No, actually not essential. So let's say we've got 100 cars and we've got one car completing every minute. So after 100 minutes, 100 minutes is the average cycle time. So I've got 100 cars here and one car is coming out the other end every minute, or just in this situation, keep things simple. So in this case, our average cycle time is going to be 100 minutes. Our average cycle time will take 100 minutes for the car to get through this area. So what's easy for us to think about is, let's go faster. Let's go ahead and put 200 cars into this situation. And I'm sure you can see the problem if we all of a sudden put 200 cars into a situation where we've got 100 cars and only one's completing every minute. And this is an aspect that Scrum Masters should be very, very aware of. Some of this comes to the stop, starting, start, finishing. But you want to make sure you protect your team and help guide your team away from just starting more work that's going to take longer to finish. So just a visual representation of that. Okay, let's see. Where are we? Okay, good. We're doing well. So, like I mentioned earlier, here are books if you're interested. If you somehow got this invite and aren't sure, somebody passed it on to you and you're not sure how you got it, www.AgileLnL will get you links to different things. Events.AgileLnL shows our upcoming events. I'm sorry, the AgileLnL.com will get you to where you can actually get on this list to get invites. The events.AgileLnL will let you see the upcoming events. I have some more that I need to get put up there that are scheduled. We'll probably take a break in the summer and then pick more back up in the fall. If this time works really well for you and you like this, feel free to drop me an email and tell me why this time works better, or if there's a better time. I'm trying to mix some things up to be able to accommodate people in other time zones. I'm very excited that you guys all joined me today. Let me know if the time works well or if there's a better time, because if we get enough people for a particular time zone, I would love to try to accommodate that. Okay, so we are now, let me make sure I've still got shirts. Okay, I do have some. So we are giving away, I'll tell you, we'll see what we give away depending on what. I've got some large shirts like this and some medium shirts like this, as well as some I turn your video on shirts. So we're going to give away one of those. Or if you're in another country, I'll give away a copy of my book, because I think I can get that to you easier. Anyway, we'll give something away to the winner of this this quiz. Depending on where you are or what shirt size you need, it may vary just a little bit. So go and join, and we will do. What we're going to do is we're going to go through, I think we have 5 questions related to this talk. Your ability to answer these questions or do them quickly in no way should be confused with the value of what you provide to your team. My goal here is just to have a fun way to kind of interact around the material. So we can remember it more, and because it's fun to give things away. So we'll give you just a few more seconds to join here. If for some reason you don't have it up or can't get to it in WebEx, if you go to slido.com and type in that number or go to that QR code. Okay, so let's do 3 more seconds. 3, 2, 1. Okay, let's take a look here. First question, Scrum Masters should find a rich patron, a technical ally, dirt on their manager, or the best AI for talking about Scrum. What should Scrum Masters find based on what we discussed here? I'm curious how many people are going to vote for dirt on their manager. Okay, good. No one voted for dirt on their manager. So a technical ally is what we talked about. Somebody that can help you walk through. Here's what we talked about in the stand-up. Here's what this means and why it's important. Even if a Scrum Master doesn't understand all the aspects of the technology that's going into it, the more they can understand it, the better they can help facilitate their team. So technical ally. The best AI for talking about Scrum might be interesting, but that wasn't mentioned in this. If you do find one, though, I'm curious what you find that works well. Okay, here's our leaderboard. We've got Alnush in top spot. We've got a bunch of people all tied for top spot. We'll see if we can winnow that down just a little bit. How should Scrum Masters see the daily face-to-face meeting? It should not become their identity. Running it should be their primary role on the team. It should be moved to email if possible. They should keep the face-to-face meeting time secret so only the truly committed can show up. How should Scrum Masters see the daily face-to-face meeting? And this is kind of trickily worded, but it should not become their identity. Remember, if we're really enabling our team and letting the team take responsibility for stuff, this daily face-to-face meeting, they should help facilitate it, help coach the team through how to be effective on it. But remember, if they don't show up for some reason and the team just goes on and does the meeting on their own, that's a sign of a healthy team. Running as far as it being their primary role on the team, I would suggest that when I've seen Scrum Masters do that, it usually is an indication that they're not really seeing the big picture on the team, and they're just asking questions without looking at how they can actually help the team overall. And 6% of us say that they should keep the daily face-to-face meeting time secret so only the truly committed can show up. If you've actually tried that, let me know how that works, because I think that's an interesting idea. I put it out there to be funny, but that's maybe there's some aspect of this that I've overlooked. Okay, Keith Monks is in the top spot, followed by Shauna. Okay, they're tied for the top spot. Next question. If we were to translate Scrum Master into Latin, which would be the most appropriate translation? Magister Peditum, Dominus Scrum, Dominus Peditum, or Magister Scrum? Remember, Magister means teacher. Dominus means like the controlling master. And yes, Magister Scrum. And the point, the Magister Peditum would be master of foot, which would be the foot soldiers. Maybe we can make a case for that by saying developers like foot soldiers, maybe. But the main thing we talk about here is the idea that Magister Scrum would imply that you're teaching and facilitating and helping make things happening and leading, rather than it being the person that just tells everybody what to do. Leadership, I like the servant leadership thing, where you're facilitating people reaching their full potential, more so than the Dominus, which is I'm the master and I tell you what to do and no one does anything differently than what I tell them to do. So yes, Magister Scrum. Keith folded in the top spot without anybody tying with him, followed by Cindy, Mavin, Carrie, and Surjit. Next question. Scrum Masters should keep secrets from their teams, create relationships with stakeholders, always run the daily face-to-face meeting, or avoid technical knowledge. From this talk, what should Scrum Masters do? 1 second remaining. And yes, create relationships with the stakeholders. They shouldn't be trying to keep secrets from their teams. They shouldn't be feeling that they have to be the one to always run daily face-to-face meetings, because we want the team to have shared ownership for that. And they should be trying to get technical knowledge. So the thing they should be doing here is creating relationships with their stakeholders. Very good. 100% people got that. Keith Monks is still in the top spot. We'll see if anybody can unseat him. We've got 2 more questions here. What did Mark say a Scrum Master should do like a halcyon bird? Eat fish, chirp, sing, and squawk, build nests on the ocean, or bring peace? Appreciate the feedback on time. Okay, bringing peace. 85% said that, and yes, that's right. I do think it's interesting that 5% of us think that they should eat fish, 5% think they should chirp, sing, and squawk, and 5% build nests on the ocean. So your Scrum Masters may perform a little bit different role than what I'm used to. The main thing I was thinking of, or that we're talking about this talk, is bringing peace. But if you find it effective for Scrum Masters to chirp, sing, and squawk, once again, let me know. That's an interesting situation. Okay, leaderboard. Keith is still in the top spot, followed by Cindy, Carrie, Surjit, Phil. I think we got 1 question left. Of the following, what did Mark say was the most important job for a Scrum Master? running ceremonies, asking everyone 3 questions, making sure no one is being lazy, or enabling collaboration. I'm not sure if I actually said this, but it's implied, and I think you can figure it out. And this is my opinion, of course. Yes, enabling collaboration. If the team's self-sufficient, the Scrum Master should be able to be gone, and the ceremony should work just fine. The 3 questions, I'm not saying it's never useful, but anyone should be able to ask 3 questions, right? Making sure no one is being lazy probably isn't a good role for them to be in, but enabling collaboration, yes, it's exactly what we want to be doing and focused on as a Scrum Master. So congratulations, Keith, you maintained your top spot. Congratulations to everyone, and hopefully that was useful for everyone to participate in. Keith, if you send me an email, let me know, actually just let me know what you want. If you want a shirt, let me know your size and your address. I'm also happy to send you a book if for some reason you're in a place that I may have a better chance of getting a book to you if you're in another country. In the US, anything works. But send me your shirt size and address, and we'll get a shirt headed your way. If you prefer a book, let me know that, and I'll get that headed your way too. Well, let's see, that's a yes. Okay, so thank you everybody for coming. I hope this was useful. I'll look through the feedback on the time. It looks like most people were saying this time is a lot easier for people. So maybe we'll try to have to start scheduling some more of these. We did one at 4 a.m. my time the other day, and it works, but it's a little bit inconvenient for me. But I think it was more convenient for people in Australia. So be watching for more things coming out at different times. If normally they were at poor times for you, we'll see what we can do. Feel free to reach out if you've got any other specific things. And I'm going to stop the streaming here. And if anybody has any questions, I would love to stick around and answer or chat or talk.